Joining us now to review some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Arise news analyst Emmanuel Efeni, the great Malabite. Good morning, Emmanuel.
Good morning, Ruben. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Rufai. We start the review with this day, Nigeria's newspaper of record. We start with the lead story. Presidency, VIPs now to pay airport toll gates after 10 billion naira loss. Aviation sector gets approval to procure 4.2 billion naira aircraft recovery equipment. Says cybersecurity levy suspended for review. Federal government to transform infrastructure housing sectors. Targets 20 trillion naira pension fund for development to provide 48-hour visa service for investors. Urges labor not to derail power sector transformation plan to look into electricity tariff hike. Yes, the Federal Executive Council had that two-day, what has not been described as marathon meeting. Well, it has to be marathon because under the Tinubu administration, they don't hold a weekly Federal Executive Council meeting, as has been the practice with past administration. So there has to be backlog of things unattended to, proposals from ministers, and hence that two-day marathon Federal Executive Council meeting. So no special kudos for any marathon. Well, a number of issues, 21 policy thrust issues dealt with and concluded at that meeting. And of course, hogging the headlines is that from the Ministry of Aviation, 10 billion naira being just not being paid by those who regard themselves as VIPs at airports. Now, the president and the vice president are even included in paying toll gates. But Ruben Abati, an alumnus of Aso Villa, I don't know how when presidential convoy is coming top speed into that Abuja airport premises, I don't know who will stop them at that gate to pay toll. They should pay their toll up front.
No, there's a state chief of protocol.
Yes.
The protocol people will have made their arrangements.
They should go and they will pay ahead.
And there is e-tag. There's what is called e-tag.
Okay.
They will also get e-tag for the vehicles in the country.
All ministries, agencies, and people who don't pay their electricity bill, I hope they will pay. They will pay. And I hope they also. Wow. I hope they will also tell the military that they are paying toll gate. Not they go there and beat up some boys that do you know who
you
is this?
Who I am.
No, so, if the president says he must pay, the VP must pay, nobody can go to the airport any longer to say we are staff. That's what they call themselves. Well, they say staff.
Well, I'm talking of the practicality now. When a general is coming with his boys. So, but we just hope everybody will comply because nobody should be above the law. In this case, there's toll to be paid at the airport. Everybody should pay, and that's what the Federal Executive Council have waded into, and everybody will pay. The president, the vice president. Of course, there are other policy issues. The FEC meeting dealt with, and I'm sure they will all add some traction to this administration, especially the countdown to the first anniversary of the Tinubu administration. Now, the story above the masthead of this day. Naira continues to weaken against dollar. Official window, 1,520.40 naira to the dollar. The parallel market, 1,535 naira to the dollar. Nasima decries depreciation, expresses concern over impact on imports. Of course, manufacturers, businessmen will have to import machinery, raw materials, because this is something they will continue to deal with. Another report there, UN grants Nigeria additional maritime territory. Yes, President Bola Tinubu has hailed the efforts of the high-powered Presidential Committee on Nigeria's External continental shelf. Yes, some gains there. Means Nigeria now have a more extensive economic zone on the maritime area. Now, the leadership newspaper, the lead story there, of course, the same lead story. No more VIPs, everybody must pay. Federal government declares. While the Business Day newspaper, Naira slide swells oil loans by 78% to 11.8 trillion Naira, accounts for 26% of total loans. Banks are allowing loans repayment till maturity. IMF, of course, the story there, the bank credit to oil and gas companies in Nigeria rose by 78% to 11.8 trillion Naira. That's about $27 billion in 2023, with the Naira devaluation stoking the surge. That's a report from the Business Day newspaper. The Punch newspaper, EFCC raids speculators as Naira drops to 1,540 Naira to the dollar. Illegal BDC operators, speculators raided in Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, Kano. Well, the Guardian newspaper, Nigeria's $1.8 billion gold reserves mined into private pockets. A lot of work for Minister of Solid Minerals, Dele Alake. Yes, we see some gains with the lithium factory established commissioned in Nasarawa State recently. We count that as a plus for the minister, but our gold still being mined by private persons who don't account to the government. Well, there's the mining rangers, right, established by the minister to check these activities of illegal miners, because there's a lot of money to be made by the country in that area, which we have neglected over time. Nigerian Tribune newspaper, federal government eyes pensions fund orders for infrastructure development. Why the Daily Trust is reporting terrorists abduct over 80 in Katsina. Women among victims, military confirmed Sunday soldiers killing in same area. And you wonder, in an area where soldiers were killed, these bandits returned, were able to take away 80 persons, burnt houses, and of course, destroyed a lot of property there. The Daily Independent newspaper, the story below the photograph, ASU threatens strike over non-constitution of Varsities Governing Council, warns Tinubu academic staff dying over cost of living. NEC reconvenes in 2 weeks to take decisive action. Well, there's been a lot of hue from the ivory tower, and the president and his team, the Minister of Education, they shouldn't wait for ASU to go on another strike before they attend to a number of issues that are pending in the academic environment, the universities. And once the university starts, the ASU, of course, the polytechnics and others usually follow with the same line of complaint. New Telegraph newspaper, now the same lead story. ASU gives federal government 2 weeks to reconstitute council, meet other demands. Daily Sun newspaper, ASU issues strike notice. The Daily Sun. The Nation newspaper, of course, Minister, electricity tariff hike reversal will derail reform plan. Federal government seeks Labour's understanding. 85% of consumers still enjoying subsidy. That's what only Band A customers are no longer enjoying subsidy. They should please not derail or distract our transformation plan. We have a clearly documented reform roadmap where we are going to have reliable, functional, cost-effective, and affordable electricity. That's the promise from the Minister of Power. Well, we want to say amen to that, but right now, even Band A don't get 20 hours. Now, if we look at the foreign newspapers quickly, the Business Day of South Africa, Anglo strategy to fend off BHP, offer forces unveiling of radical self-help plan to reduce portfolio. Of course, that deal yet to be concluded and still hanging. BHP, the Australian mining giant, wanting to buy the Anglo-Dutch Mining Corporation. Now, the daily news of Zimbabwe. SADC wants all sanctions gone. Region planning to push for this at August summit. Yes, a number of sanctions imposed on Zimbabwe by the Western countries, of course, in the days of Mugabe, Robert Mugabe, president, especially in the wake of the nationalization of lands, still in place. And of course, choking that country. Now, the South African Development Community that will be meeting in August in Harare, Zimbabwe, promising that they will put pressure, they will lobby to ensure that those sanctions against Zimbabwe are lifted. Of course, the the South African ambassador to Zimbabwe, Rejoice Mudafasi, is the one making that statement there, reported in the Daily News of Harare. The Daily Nation newspaper of Kenya, counties face cash crisis as MPs clash. Dispute counties are staring at a major cash crunch should Parliament fail to agree soon on the amount of money to be allocated to the devolved units. That's talking about what's happening in Kenya. The Times of London don't teach pupils about gender ID. Schools told. Guidance also rules out sex education before the age of 13. Schools must not teach children that they can change their gender identity and should avoid explicit conversation about sex until they reach the age of 13. The government in the UK is making that directive, giving that directive to schools in the UK. Now, the independent newspaper of UK, police admits we can't tackle knife crime on our own. In an extraordinary candid confession, Britain's most senior officer in charge of policing knife crime says forces need help to solve problems as criminals increasingly use social media to buy and sell weapons. While the Washington Post is reporting, Trump's lawyers, Precious Cohen, tries to undermine his credibility. One-time fixer says he'd like to see a conviction of former President Donald Trump, Ruben Ayo Rufai.
Okay, so a couple of things. Number one, the government is trying to extend the second stretch of the coastal road, which is a welcome development. But the question I also like to ask is, what about the other roads that need priority? Take, for instance, the Sapele Road.
That's the Benin-Warri Road.
The Benin-Warri Road that goes through Sapele.
A major highway.
It's a major highway.
Federal highway.
Abandoned that leads to the oil-rich city of Warri, where you have many government installations, where you have a still thriving sector, and you're wondering what is going on there. Also, the other part I am ambivalent about is this use of 20 trillion of pension funds. I just hope we will not mismanage that money. I know the pension funds, yes, can be plowed into investments and all of that so that you can get returns. But I would have wanted a defined investment part to it, maybe probably in the private sector. But when you are saying government can dip their hands for infrastructure and everything, it looks very nebulous. So maybe the government will have to expatiate more on all of that. I hear we need to go. I think we have to wrap up now. Thank you so much, Mr. Fini, for your time.